On September 1st of last year, 2017, the tiered registry bill that we've been working on for 6.5 years, it died. Okay? One person, the chair of the Assembly's Appropriations Committee, killed it. So anybody here who lives in San Diego, this is Janice's personal opinion. Our organization cannot support or oppose any candidate, but if you have a chance to vote against Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, please do so. She's in San Diego, she is a Democrat, and she hates people on the registry. And the man she married, Nathan Fletcher, he also hates people on the registry. I'm serious, he was in the Assembly at one point himself, and he created, he's responsible for Chelsea's Law. Okay, so these are two people who have actually based their political careers on hurting people on the registry. So on September 1st, though, it died. And I remember I was at the hearing and we were expecting it to go forward, and that was the last step before it went to the floor of the Assembly. It already passed the Senate, and trust me, that never happened before, and we were so happy it had passed the Senate. And it was went through the Public Safety Committee in the Assembly, that passed that committee, and then it came to the Appropriations Committee. And because the Department of Justice told the legislature it was going to cost tens of millions of dollars, not save money, but it was going to cost tens of millions of dollars to implement the tiered registry, it ended up in the Appropriations Committee. And it's very undemocratic, but that one committee, and it's true, and one person on that committee can stop a bill. So anytime a bill gets to the Appropriations Committee, we're always holding our breath. We don't know what's going to happen. And sure enough, Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher single-handedly stopped her bill. Now, why did she do that? Because she thought it was the best thing to do. And why did she think it was the best thing to do? Because law enforcement was behind her and saying, you need to stop this bill. So September 1st, it was a Friday. I remember the day very clearly. I was there in the hearing room when they killed the bill. And I'm like, after 6.5 freaking years of work, one person kills our bill, right? And there was other drama involving the bill before this, but here we got so close and the bill dies. And I do remember how I responded to that. I went home, I baked some brownies, and I got a glass of wine and watched Netflix. And that's how I dealt with my pain that evening. And to my great surprise, the bill was resurrected. And there's only one reason the bill was resurrected. Governor Jerry Brown, who's not often our friend, called Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher and said, wrong answer. This is how politics really gets done, folks. So he called, we still don't know why Jerry Brown did that. Again, he hasn't been a friend of our community. He's hurt us in other respects, but for the tiered registry bill that's now law, he's totally responsible for it reviving. But what happened was, politics are about compromise, folks. And the compromise that was made, remember, law enforcement asked Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher to kill the bill, okay? And they wanted their pound of flesh, and they got it, okay? The pound of flesh that they got was everybody who's been convicted of a sex offense, a felony child pornography sex offense is on tier 3. That means you still have to register for a lifetime, okay? We're going to try to change that next year. I'm giving you a huge introduction, then I'll have to go to the slide. But we're going to try to change it next year. And anybody who cares about that, please go to the Effective Advocacy panel this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Also to be repeated tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Because we're going to talk about how we're going to attempt to change that law. I don't know if it's going to take us 6.5 years to change it. I hope not, but we're going to try it. Okay, so back to the service. I hope I can figure out how to make this work. We have a techie person in the room that knows how to do this. Otherwise, we may not get past the first slide. Okay. Do you know how to get past it? All right, so let's talk about the context of the tiered registry. The fact is that 46 out of 50 states already had a tiered registry. When we ask our state legislature to do this, we're like, it's no big deal. 46 out of 50 states already have it, right? Well, they're like, but we're California, we're different, right? And indeed we have. So the other 4 states that have the other 3 states that have lifetime registries are Alabama, Florida, and South Carolina. We don't usually have much in common with those states. Those are usually Republican states, and we have a very democratic state legislature, and it's that reason or some other reason that we don't usually agree with each other. Okay, so we did have the drama at the beginning. We had a bill, and it was introduced by Senator Lara, L-A-R-A, and for you Californians in the crowd, Senator Lara is running for insurance commissioner, and this is important in our fact. His last name is Lara, L-A-R-A, Ricardo Lara. And Ricardo Lara, I remember being at a committee hearing with him, and he announced to the audience that he was a victim of sexual abuse. Right? And I'm like, well, okay. But he was going to be the author of the bill, which is like awesome. You have a victim of sexual abuse who's going to be the author of this bill. Well, he was for a while, until he decided he was going to run for insurance commissioner. And then all of a sudden he decided he didn't want to be the sponsor anymore. I'm serious, this is what happens. So the fact is, and that was Senate Bill 695, and it died because he withdrew his support. And we were like, you know, one of those oh shit moments. Now what do we do? And sure enough, Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco stepped forward and said he was willing to do it. He's a gay man, openly gay man, as is Ricardo Lara, by the way. And Senator Wiener said he would do it, and he had some support. Senator Assemblyman Amiano and Senator Leno, who both had been termed out at the state legislature, they were behind him as well. They're all from the San Francisco area. And by the way, gays are way out of proportion, the number of gays who are on the registry. So we keep reaching out to the gay community, and in fact we have an LGBTQ panel this afternoon, and Dr. Meyer is going to be on it. He's sitting in the back of the room right now. And we did have California Equality, or Equality California, who in fact supported our tiered registry bill. It's really, really important. And unfortunately, I mean, some of the saddest phone calls I get are from gay men and gay women calling me up and telling me that they are being discriminated in the gay community, that people don't want to have anything to do with them because they're on the sex offender registry. And I just find that so hard to believe, except that I have a daughter who's gay, right? A lesbian daughter. Love my daughter. Glad she doesn't have cancer, in case you're wondering. But the fact is that she is indignant about this. And when I first told her about the work I'm going to do, the first thing out of her mouth was, how could you? That was the first thing out of her mouth. And I'm like, excuse me, and her partner at the time was a victim of sexual abuse. Didn't even know that. But the first, how could you? Now, my daughter is singing a slightly different tune now, but there's no way she wants to hear me advocate to her or the gay community. I'd love to go to a meeting with her, or the gay pride parade, right? Say, here's my daughter. And oh, by the way, gays are overrepresented on the registry. So we're trying, and we keep trying to connect with that group of people, again, because gays are overrepresented on the registry. Oh, by the way, so are ethnic minorities, right? And the cynical person might say, Chance, that the people who don't go on the registry are the white men who have a lot of money and power, right? So they get convicted of something else that doesn't require them to register. Have you ever seen that happen?
Well, yeah.
Okay. And they probably hired Chance, who does he's a great criminal defense attorney. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that when the bill went forward with Senator Wiener, we had no opponents, none. Even the victim abuse community was supporting a tiered registry bill. I mean, after 6.5 years, it was like a huge miracle. So the original bill, by the way, we calculated roughly that about 90% of the people currently on the registry would have benefited from it, okay? After it got changed, it's about 75%. So the fact is we lost this great big group of people. Again, anybody convicted of a felony, not a misdemeanor, a felony offense for possessing, creating, or distributing child pornography. So you all are going to remain on Tier 3 until this bill gets changed. Okay. So, the governor signed the bill into a law on October 6th of last year, and again, actually it's the only thing I've known that Jerry Brown has ever done to help us, is this law. Okay, so let's talk about the tiered registry itself. It creates 3 tiers. Right now, everybody on the registry is on the registry for a lifetime. You realize that, right? Everybody's on the registry for a lifetime. Very few people are eligible for something called a certificate of rehabilitation. We have one person in the room, Mike, raise your hand, who got off the registry for a certificate of rehabilitation. But by the time he got his certificate, he'd been on the registry for 35 years. Okay? He was convicted of a misdemeanor offense, which is why I was his attorney and not Chance. I take the easy cases. The difficult ones come to Chance here. And he was able to get off the registry through that way. And by the way, Mike is still very involved in our organization and in our movement. So thank you, Mike, for sticking with us. So back to the 3 tiers. Tier 1, 10 years minimum. Tier 2, 20 years minimum. Tier 3, lifetime. And Chance is going to talk a lot about who's on which tier and also how the petitioning process, because that's what it's going to take. So under the current law, tier 1 is any misdemeanor offense. So even though I talked about CP offenses before, if you were convicted of a misdemeanor CP offense, you will be on tier 1, okay? And after 10 years, and then you start counting the time after you left jail or prison, okay? It doesn't start with your conviction date, and I know sometimes it can be years in between sentencing and going to prison or jail. It doesn't start after parole or probation ends. It starts when you leave jail or prison. Okay? So that could be good news, that could be bad news. Minimum 10 years. There's some things that could change that. And for example, a failure to register. If you have a misdemeanor failure to register, this is what the law says, then they're going to add on a year. If you have a felony failure to register, it's 3 years. Okay. There's going to be some other things too, and Chance is going to talk about that changes the exact number of years. But this is the basic. Tier 2, it's a minimum of 20 years. Okay, so for 20 years, the biggest category there, and this is the biggest surprise and a very pleasant surprise, anybody convicted of Penal Code Section 288A, parentheses A, lewd and lascivious acts. Okay, about half the people on our registry were convicted of that. And I think that the prosecutors must get a bonus for every person that has been convicted of that, because we have so many people. But that category right there is going to fit into tier 2. And I'm concerned, just so you know, when we go in next year to change the law, I'm a little concerned that we might lose 288A. I'm less concerned than I used to be, because I've been told that the prosecutors even understand, and they want to get 288As off the registry. And by the way, I talked about who the author of the bill, Senator Scott Wiener from San Francisco. The person who was the sponsor of the bill, and sponsors are not legislators, but somebody who cares about it, was the DA in Los Angeles, Jackie Lacey. She cared about this. Does she really care about people in the registry? I don't think so. But what she says, and she said it publicly, is I am spending so many of my resources, my DA resources, tracking down people that we know don't pose a current danger, that I'm sick and tired of this. I want to get rid of these people, right? And again, we've had a tiered registry. I haven't actually said this before, but we've had a tiered registry now for 71 years. This is the 71st year. That's a really, really long time. And I know some people too that are like, well, we didn't get everything. It's true, we didn't get everything in the tiered registry law, but we got a lot. And for any change after 70 years of anything, try to change your grandparents' mind about anything, right? It doesn't happen quickly. So the fact that we got something, I don't know how many slices of loaf of bread we got, maybe I can say 70 slices out of 100. But the fact is, we've got something very valuable here. But it's certainly not a perfect system.
Okay. Is that for a misdemeanor or for a felony?
What's that?
The lewd and lascivious.
288. 288, sub-parentheses A, is always a felony, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it's a felony, no wobbler, you can't get it reduced to a misdemeanor.
Why did you say we might lose that? I didn't.
It's the political process. You just never know. I mean, trust me, it's tempting in some respects just to let sleeping dogs lie. This doesn't go into effect, by the way, until the year 2021. Okay? In the year 2021, then people can start petitioning for removal from the registry. And that's what this is all about. You want the petition to be removed from the registry, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful to actually celebrate your birthday some other way than registering? Yeah. I've heard that. I'm just guessing. Okay, so tier 3 is in fact still going to require lifetime registration. In some respects, it's like, well, what's the difference? We're already registering for a lifetime, okay? And that was my attitude in the beginning, and then finally the light bulb came on, which is, the difference is, if 70% of the people are getting off the registry, and you're part of the 30% that doesn't, that's put you in a different light. I understand that, okay? And we're going to fight like bloody hell to try to help people, especially people convicted of CP offenses, to get moved down from tier 3 to tier 2 or tier 1. And by the way, the federal guidelines, good old SORNA, those people in Washington, D.C., their recommendation is that CP offenses should be on tier 1 or tier 2. They don't even think they should be on tier 3, okay? So we're just saying, hey, for once, I'm saying, listen to the federal government, right?
What is CP?
Child pornography. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea why they decided to require that pound of flesh and what their beef was, or when they had to focus on that to make it tier 3? Is there any rationality? You know?
They don't need a rationale. It's called political power. It's political power. They were exercising their political power. Yes. Yeah, so it's just about political power, what's feasible. They didn't want the tiered, some of them did not want the tiered registry. They almost brought it down. They were, again, the ones that influenced Lorena Gonzalez-Fletcher to bring it down. She stopped it on September 1st, and so it was only revived because of the governor, but the people behind her was law enforcement. So they said, hey, we're a powerful lobby. They are a very powerful lobby. Just to let you know, they're very, very powerful, okay? And what they say makes a really big difference for the people who vote. The people who want to be perceived as tough on crime, right? As coming from the law enforcement people. They have paid lobbyists, okay? They have people who come in uniforms to committee hearings. We don't have those things, right? I am a volunteer. Lobbyist. And we get other volunteers together when we go talk to the state legislature, and we have been very effective. Over the years, and in fact, we're really good at, I say, zapping bugs. So like this year, we've already stopped 3 bills that would harm our community. That's what we've done this year, by volunteers. But the law enforcement people, they have paid lobbyists, people have nice offices in Sacramento, right? Who can afford multicolored handouts and things like that. We take black and white stuff because, it's a matter of expense. So, but let's get back to the tiered registry itself here. There is one exception to people on tier 3. Some people are going to be assigned to tier 3 because of their risk level. So anybody here heard of static 99s? Something like a static 99 test? Well, you get a number, and that supposedly represents your risk level. The language is vague enough that in fact it could be changed. And so there's some other kind of testing that's being discussed, and so they may change it. But for right now, thank you for trying. For right now, it's basically based on your static 99 score. And a score of 4 or higher is considered high risk. 4 or higher. And if you're a young gay man, you're at least a 4.
If what?
If you're a young gay man, you're at least a 4 high risk. Tara, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I think the way the law is written is the terminology on static 99 is well above average, and that's actually 6 in adult. Something I understand.
Okay, so we can have a difference of opinion about that. I've been told 4, and whatever the number is.
I'm pretty sure that it's going to be 6.
Okay, and so we'll look into that so we can give you more accurate information. Again, it doesn't go into effect until the year 2021, and I bet the Department of Justice regulations will address that. Okay, so, but again, for people who end up on tier 3, not based upon the offense that you committed, but based on your risk level, there is an off-ramp from tier 3 after 20 years. Only 20 years.
Janice, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Of course.
My question is two-pronged. So you mentioned 288A. Where does 288B fall into? That's the first question. And the second question is, I'm guessing I can learn more at the advocacy panel. But my question is, as a person that prior to my conviction, I was involved in, I worked for a political party, what would be a way that I can utilize the skills that I learned in that 10 years now
Please
to
call me
advocate on our
We can talk here at the conference here, and yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you all, but I was so happy to hear what Lori Jo had to say. And for so long, we've been going for 6.5 years to Sacramento, and we've been delivering a certain message, right? And it was all up to the reptilian brain thing. And I didn't know how to get our message beyond the reptilian brains. And also what was actually triggering the reptilian brain thing. Now I understand that. Remember about framing the message? So I was like, whoa. And Lori Jo, I'm really hoping that she's going to get an opportunity to educate the board members, okay? And then we can turn around and help educate you. It's all very important.
That was a great presentation.
It really was. And I had never heard her before, but she was so highly recommended. And I was like, yes, let's have her come. Yes, sir.
Did I hear you say that 288A is definitely on tier 2?
Yes. 20 years.
And that's mandatory 20 years? Minimum 20 years.
It's a minimum of 20 years, okay? So they gave themselves some wiggle room here, and Chance is going to talk a lot more about that. So let's just say, okay, you were convicted of any offense. Let's just say it's a 20-year offense, and then you get convicted of a DUI, okay? Get convicted of a DUI or some other felony, it's going to affect when you can petition for removal.
And I see other questions out there, but let's put this in perspective, because we can get caught here in a place where we don't want to get caught. This is as it stands now. 2019 may change the whole schematic of what we're talking about here. This is the grouping under the tiers. We can't tell you for sure what's going to happen. The only thing that we know for sure is what the process is going to be in petitioning to get off the registry. That, I don't think, is going to change much. I think that's pretty much ingrained. I don't see much changes there. But what Janice is talking about is actually the tier groupings. And the tier groupings and departure from the top to the bottom, which is downward departure from those groupings, isn't in the law yet. Upward ascension is, okay, based on a person's conduct and a person's risk factor and some other things. But downward departure isn't present in the law. So what she's addressing is the legislative aspects of the categories of the tiers. We'll get into the process in a minute.
Yes, thank you. And also, folks, the information that I've been sharing with you has to do with adult convictions. If you were convicted as a juvenile, okay, not a juvenile who was convicted as an adult, but if you were convicted as a juvenile, there's a different tier range. I'm not even going to talk about it because it'll just be too confusing. But we do have handouts. Okay, so again, it goes to the bill, or the law will go into effect until the year 2021. We've got 3 more years to wait, okay? Why is it taking so much time? It's because the California Department of Justice convinced the legislature it was going to take them all this time to figure out what tier you're on, right? And I'm like, really? I mean, most people can figure it out in 5 minutes or less. And if you have an ambiguous situation, come to Chancellor, right? And we can probably do it in an hour. Okay, so, but the fact is that they think they're going to take 3 years to figure this out. And they're going to assign you a tier. And I don't know how they really think they're going to get parts of that information onto you. Maybe it will be added to your profile on the Megan's Law website. Maybe they'll send you a cheery letter. Congratulations! You have been assigned to Tier 3 and required to register for life, right? Thank you very much. Or maybe they'll say you're in Tier 1. Yes, sir?
I'm just wondering if a person on the registry in a different state moves to California, which laws are going to apply to that person after they become a resident of California? The state law from the other registry or from California?
I think it's going to depend where you actually live. So one of the weird things right now, a certificate of rehabilitation, and I mentioned, and Mike is a successful example of a certificate of rehabilitation. some people who would otherwise be eligible for a certificate can't apply for one because they left California. So, in one of the eligibility criterion for certificate of rehabilitation is you have to have lived in the state of California for 5 years. I don't know if they're going to add something like that to the petition process. I really don't know. Now in California, and again, you know, we lawyers, we like to look at, well, what's happening in related areas. If you were convicted in another state and you come to California, do you have to register? And it all depends. Lawyers' favorite response. It depends on what, if there's an equivalent offense in the state of California. So some people get convicted of an offense in the state of Texas. They come here, and California Department of Justice says, congratulations, you don't have to register here. Or they say, oh, you were convicted in Texas, you no longer have to register in Texas, you still have to register here.
Right.
Okay, because there are some states that don't have, remember 46 out of 50 states that don't have lifetime registration, which in fact lets you get off the registry after a period of time, right? But the fact is, if that's an equivalent offense in California, they're going to make you register here in California. And I know very personally of a person in Texas, he was on the registry in Texas for 10 years, he came to California, and he didn't think he had to register, and guess what? He found out he was wrong.
You're also running the risk of being charged a federal crime if you don't find a way to register in another state.
Yeah. Because what you just mentioned is, I went to Las Vegas, and I thought, of course, like I've always been taught, you're supposed to go to a state, you need to register within a time frame, so I went there. Didn't want to register, but of course I did. But when I went to the police department, they asked me again, what are you here for? And I told them, but it took them like a huddle. They had to huddle up, and it took them almost 30 minutes to decide whether or not they were going to do something. And then one guy says, well, okay, we'll register you. And so I was shocked. I thought for sure they're going to take it right away, but they had to think about it.
Yeah, there's all kinds of specific circumstances. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, how do you know what tier you're in?
The California Department of Justice is going to assign you to a tier. Yeah. Okay? And they'll do that by January 1st of 2021.
They say they're going to do that. Now, Janice and I have been over in the enemy's camp, which is the Department of Justice, and we have spoken to the head of the unit, and we know that they move slowly. As a matter of fact, when we were speaking to them, they were 5 years over their mandate for doing what we were there for. So, you know, the idea is that they're going to do it by 2021 is maybe, okay, because if you think about it, okay, it's not easy. It says we have well over 100,000 registrants in this state. And it's not just by conviction that you fall into a tier. They're going to have to examine, one, your conviction. They're going to have to determine the seriousness of that conviction. They're going to have to determine your risk factors. They're going to have to determine your pre- and post-conviction conduct. A lot of stuff goes into the formula. Multiply that over 100,000 times, and you tell me if you can accomplish that task by 2021.
And I want to emphasize something Chance just said. It's in the law. It says that the judge must consider your post-conviction behavior. It doesn't say criminal behavior, your post-conviction behavior. And I'm like, oh my God, if I take my library book back to the library and it's late, is that post-conviction behavior? We don't know, by the way.
Well, I'll give you a hint. This is my supposition, but I'll give you a hint. Now, when it comes to things like certificates of rehabilitation, when a prosecutor looks at a person's background, they don't just look at post-convictions. They look at post-conviction arrests. So let's just say you were arrested in a road rage incident. And, you know, it was resolved because the county that it happened in decided to reject it. Because it amounted to his word, your word. Okay? And it amounted to nothing. Yet, when you come up for assessment, the original report with all the hyperbole in it, they said this, you said that, is now a factor that can be considered in deciding whether or not to grant that certificate. Okay, think about that. That's post-conviction conduct.
Sure.
A good example of it. And that's what I think they're looking at here.
You can just be at the wrong place at the wrong time, right? You're in a bar having a drink, you're 21 or older, it's perfectly illegal and a bar fight breaks out, right? And everybody gets arrested. Well, and I go, well, you don't have a bloody nose, okay? You don't have any gash marks, okay, you're fine, get out of here. But you've been arrested, right? And that's, again, what Chance was just talking about. That could affect your ability to get off the registry. And that's what we're talking about. The ability to get off the registry for the rest of your life. So, trust me, you're going to hold pretty tightly onto this, especially at the beginning. And at the beginning, I'm expecting a huge flood. Okay, Chance, he's expecting a huge flood of people who want to get up. It makes sense to me. 70 freaking years, which is 71 as of this year. By that time, it'll be 74 years of this freaking registry, and people want to get off, and they deserve to get off. But what's going to happen, and Chance is going to talk about this process in detail, is you have to petition for removal. There was a part of the original bill that got taken out, which was that if you had committed your offense before whatever year it was, that was going to be automatic. And they took that out. So nobody, and I mean it was at least 30 years, so nobody is going to get off the registry automatically. Please understand that. And another thing that Chance is going to talk about, how do you increase the possibility or the probability that your petition will in fact result in your being terminated from the registry. You're still going to be on the planet, okay, but just trying to get you off the registry.
Jen,
yes.
Can I ask one last question?
Absolutely.
So, number one, the handout that I received does not list 288B. So I'm still curious where that falls. But that's not my main question.
Good.
My main question is, thankfully, my case is up for a 1203.4 dismissal next week. So how does that, if your case is dismissed, does that help you later on?
Perfect segue.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because, I'm thinking the 288B, there's a 288A, which is a felony, there's a 288C, which is a wobbler, and we're talking about lewd and lascivious acts with a child 14 or under.
Contacting.
If you don't fall into that category and you're in some other category, that's fine. Okay, the law as written today precludes dismissal in both those situations. Okay? Unless unless you were convicted so long ago that a specific case applies to you and lets you individually get that dismissal. But forget about that for right now.
It's a wobbler.
Yeah, forget about that for right now. The important part to understand is it's all in flux until the end of 2019. So we really can't legitimately and intelligently answer that question until we know what the categories actually are. Okay, so it's better, I think, to keep that kind of on your mind, maybe where you might fall in. You know what you were convicted of, you know whether or not it's a misdemeanor or a felony, you know whether or not you picked up any more convictions along the way. You know what your conduct has been. You know whether or not someone's gone to court and got a restraining order against you. Okay, and that is post-conviction conduct, with a lot of other things. So you kind of know what your life pattern is, what your lifestyle is. You know this. And as I opened up the conference today, I mentioned that the best evidence is direct evidence of your conduct. Okay, above all, because other factors can be used as circumstantial evidence that you were not only eligible but qualified to be removed from the list, but direct evidence of how you live and what you do is the best evidence. Okay, and I'm going to go through the process right now and discuss with you, unless Janice has something else she wants to talk about, how this all works. Now, I put together a handout, everybody has it, and I'm always asked about this. Well, okay, say I fall into a category where I can get relief. What is the process? Well, I kind of put the process down for you in a 2-page handout. You've got front and back page, and I'll go through it, and there's a place. Yes, sir. You don't have. Okay, you'll go. There's a place that I'm going to really emphasize, and that is in the process what you can do. But I'm going to sketch over it. You have it down, so I'm going to go over it right now. One is your application. Now, Janice told you about how it's triggered, but petitions may be filed upon the expiration of the tier 10 or 20. That is how it stands right now. Okay, and for juvenile offenders, at the birthday following expiration of their tier. Okay, eligibility. The registering law enforcement agency has 60 days to report to the DA and the court that the registrant has complied with the Registration Act. If the agency identifies an out-of-state conviction that may impact the registration or the registrant's tiered assignment, the agency may request more time. So it's usually 60 days. Okay, that's what it's going to be. That's what they say, unless there's some kind of complication, out-of-state stuff that they need to process, and they may get a little bit more time. Okay, now, once that happens, if no hearing is requested, now the DA, we'll get into why the DA can request a hearing, and in this process, the DA can request a hearing. But let's just say the DA does not request a hearing. You've submitted, it comes back after 60 days, you're eligible. If the DA doesn't submit a request for a hearing, the court shall grant the petition if 1, the registrant has satisfied the Registration Act throughout the registration period. 2, there are no pending charges that could impact the tiering. And 3, the person is not in custody or on parole, probation, or supervised release. Okay? Now, what if the district attorney, DA, opposes? The DA may request a hearing on the petition if community safety would be significantly enhanced by continued registration. That's a catch-all. But that's what they're going to call it, and that's what it's going to be. There's no other rationale for asking that you stay on longer than you should. And that's why I put that in there, and that's the standard they're going to use. Okay, a court hearing. The DA may, now, once the DA does that, then your request to be removed from the registry goes to a court hearing. Now, this is similar to a certificate of rehabilitation hearing, except the factors are very different, because in a certificate of rehabilitation hearing, it's post-conviction only, not prior. And some other things may weigh in, but certainly not risk factor, not so much, and maybe not even psychological evaluations. Okay, maybe not. Depends on what the jurisdiction is, and it depends on what the culture is in terms of post-conviction relief in that jurisdiction. But let's just focus on what's required here. The DA may present evidence, and judges have significant discretion to deny the petition under numerous, what I call aggravating factors that they may consider below, which is on that handout, number 1, the nature of the registerable offense. Now, every time I've ever stepped into court, no matter what the offense is, it's always serious, it's always horrible, it's always bad. So you can imagine, you can go from very low level to very high level, but the argument is that this is a very serious case and these are egregious facts. And that's what that means. The age and number of victims. Now, Janice and I have met with the DA liaison, and we did this years ago when we were thinking about how to push the tiered system, and he said, we draw a huge line on age, 14 and under. That's what he said. That's why when we look at 288A as a second tier offense, we kind of say, well, what happened there? I mean, how did that happen? But it did, and that's why Janice has expressed some doubt as to whether it might stay in that 20-year category. But the age and number of victims, over the age of 14, and solitary alleged or complaining witness, a victim, that's good. Other than that, that's bad. Okay, and that's an aggravating factor. 3, whether any victim was a stranger at the time of the offense. Now, this is relatively new thinking in the last few years, stranger danger, but it's been supplanted in these factors. Okay, and it says, like, I have in parentheses, known to the offender for less than 24 hours. That's a big deal, because they think that's totally predatory and dangerous to the community. And so that aggravates this thing. Now, here's number 4, criminal and relevant non-criminal behavior before and after conviction. So it's not just what you've done afterwards that may aggravate it, but who you were before that may enhance the aggravation. And if you have violent crimes, assault, battery, whatever, that's going to play into the whole scenario that's an aggravating factor, and that's going to cause you to be a danger to the community. The time period during which the person has not reoffended. Yeah, that's going to be good. That's going to be good for you if it's been a long time. It's going to be very bad for you if it's been a relatively short time. And a short time could be the duration of your tier. Actually, Okay? And a long time could be, hey, you qualify for Tier 1, but you've been good for 20 years because by the time you got to 2021, that's how long it's been. Successful completion, if any, of a Sex Offender Management Board certified sex offender treatment program, which is most of the programs they require when you get convicted of a sex offense. If you've done well there, that's really, really good. And that helps because having the backing of the person who ran that program is, I think, key to success. Because everybody wants to make sure that you get it. And that is how judges and prosecutors think you get it. You get it if you're in tune with the program and you've done everything that you were supposed to do and you understand the reason you were there, you develop some insight, you show some remorse, and you participate and you're open and transparent and you go through the therapy process. And I believe that that is one of the strong points, but it could also be one of the weak points. You were quiet, you were in denial, you flunked the polygraph X number of times, and so on and so forth. I think you understand the pattern. Okay, that can work against you or it can work for you.
Excuse me?
Yes?
If at the time of your conviction, this was not required, the certification management, and that was like almost 30 years ago, what do you do now?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay, good.
We'll get to that. And the answer is, I don't know. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
Because there are some creative solutions and thinking about it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the person's current risk of sexual or violent reoffense, including the person's risk levels on Sorazzo, static, dynamic, and violent risk assessment instruments, if available. This is where all the voodoo science comes in. Okay, this is where all the voodoo science comes in. Okay, and some folks, you know, they just, for some reason, just, you know, they can't do the program. And they end up in a bad way here. And if you do, that really is a factor where prosecutors can play that up and show actual documented evidence that supports their assertion that you're a danger to the community because a professional says so. And that's a tough one. Okay, now here's where the rubber meets the road for this petition process if you've got to go through it. One, I call it factors in mitigation, rebuttable presumptions. Now this is not something you're going to find in the law. This is something that I'm saying. And I'm saying it because I think this is the way it has to be approached. Each one of those factors that I've said can be rebutted. What if they're inaccurate? What if they've got your wrong, you know, what if they've run your wrong background sheet, your CI? What if your background sheet from the state is inaccurate? You know, and it's time to check it now if it is. You can request it and you can fix that, okay? Because the DOJ allows you to make those adjustments. But each and every factor that I've gone through can be rebutted with actual evidence. Okay, and if any of these things are wrong, or any of these things are incorrect, or you get a risk number that just doesn't fit who you are, I believe that you can get a reassessment, and I think that can be challenged. 2, your conduct. And that is criminal and relevant non-criminal behavior before and after conviction, okay? For the registrable offense, the time period during which the person is not reoffended, and successful completion of any of the Sex Offender Management Board Certified Sex Offender Program. Just exactly what I said a moment ago, which is, you can't do anything about what happened before the conviction. It's there. You can't do anything about it other than this. If it is a felony and it's a wobbler, if it is something that you can get a dismissal for, if there's any way to try to put the jack a little bit back in the box, do it. Because every time you fix something that was undone, even if it happened before you were convicted, you're showing that you're making efforts to clean this oil slick up. And that is acknowledged by prosecutors and it's acknowledged by judges. If you leave it just sitting out there and say it doesn't count because it's only the stuff that happened afterwards that really counts, you're playing the part of the judge and you're not the judge. And you're playing the part of the prosecutor who you're not, and you're going to find that those two in the hoots together are going to make a big deal out of it if you never did anything to put the jack back in the box. Okay, number 2, post-conviction. You, each and every one of you, are in charge of your own judgments and choices. And I've said this morning, I'll say it again. You know, do everything you can with integrity. Everything. And that means that if you got yourself in a mess, do everything you can to get yourself out of that mess. And if that means that I'll get to you in just a minute. If that means that you've got to complete probation without a hitch, if that means you've got to go through a therapy program, if that means you've got to conform your behavior so that you don't get any, you don't have to have any parking tickets, or you don't get traffic violations. If you've got to do that, then that's what you've got to do to come back in the fold. You may have to do a lot more than the average person who hasn't been convicted has to do to live life, but that's your burden.
Let me give you a couple examples too, because Chance has been talking about the criminal world, and maybe because I'm a civil attorney, I look at that even more. And that is, there are some things you can do. And for example, I helped a man one time, and it wasn't a certificate of eligibility, but helped him get his contractor's license. And one of the things we talked about was what a good model citizen he was, right? And he even, we have the Adopt a Highway. You've seen those little signs by the freeways and stuff like that. He and his wife did Adopt a Highway. And so he and his wife went out there like every Saturday afternoon, and they picked up trash, okay? Think of things like that, opportunities that you have. Be careful of them. You don't want to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, okay? Or the Scouts. You know, you need to do something that will, in fact, benefit the community and keep you safe. And I think the gentleman has.
Yes, sir.
Okay, some of the things I've done in this is volunteering with a veterans organization, okay? Veterans organizations such as the American Legion are founded off of 4 pillars. Veterans rehabilitation, national security, yeah, I'm going to have to remember this right now, Americanism, and children and youth. I work 3 pillars out of the 4. When people ask me about the 4th one, I said, that's not my calling, that's not my ministry, you enjoy that. But volunteering at the VA hospital for 423 hours. I basically gave up my job as a personal trainer and volunteered at the VA hospital, helping other veterans getting away with better diet choices, staying away from the donut table. My wife does volunteering. We go to the VA L1 ward and we do bingo. You can do Habitat for Humanity. Okay. You can go over and clean up beaches. Those beaches are a horrible mess. You can go over and volunteer to clean up beaches. I have certificates from senators, state assembly people, and Congress people. All for the work I've done. You can possibly even do, depending on what it is, Meals on Wheels. Okay, so this is, everybody knows, you could do 50,000 good things, but they'll always remember that one bad thing. But that's why you have to give them a forest to look through to see that one bad thing. You need to go out there and proactively stack that deck and set up the defenses around that one bad thing so they really have to look, but let that cloud of service work that you're doing, make it hard to see. I mean, it's still there, it's true, but by the cloud of service work that you do, you can tell people, here's the teeter-totter. Yeah, I have this, but look at this cloud over here. This cloud is full of water and it's ready to burst. All right? Be that proactive citizen that goes out and does the right thing. Sure, yeah, everybody stepped in it. We're rubbing our feet to get the stink off of us in the grass and stuff like that. But you can stack. What are you passionate about? Go and volunteer with it and stay away from anything that is unseemly.
All right.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, that's good advice. That's good advice. And you can do other things too. And I'll get to you in just a second. You can do other things. You can better yourself. You can go out and get your degree. You can be a caretaker for your parents or your grandparents. There is a lot of things you can do where you can show that you've got compassion, you've got heart, you're willing to do something for someone else. There's a larger world outside of you, and that you're willing to participate in it. Yes, sir.
So in speaking about the things that you did prior to your conviction and cleaning that up, Let's just say I have like a thing in college and a fight breaks out and I got arrested, but didn't they just let me go. Took an anger management class. The judge was like, whatever, it's expunged and that's it. So in tidying up something like that, I'd like to think like, well, it's no big deal, and I was in exactly the category of something. I don't care about that.
Well, you just said it. You got it expunged, which means you took the time to put the check back in the box.
Okay, so that's
what I'm talking about. You took care of that. And by the way, that helps me into this segue. Post-conviction relief. And I want you to listen very closely to this because it means something. You may not think so, but it does. Right now, once this tier thing happens, let's just say it happens in 2021, theoretically. Right now, for relief in California, if you want relief from a certificate, if you want relief through a certificate of rehabilitation, you've got to get a dismissal first. It's expungement. It's required if you get probation. If you go to prison and you're not precluded from applying, you don't need a dismissal. Okay, but this 2021 law doesn't require a dismissal. It just requires you to be on the tier for a number of years. So it really makes dismissal irrelevant, you would think. But I'm going to tell you right now, my argument for this is it's not. It's actually really important because each thing you do in mitigation makes the case that your conduct warrants that they take you off that registry. Why is that important? Because a dismissal says that you've done everything right. A dismissal says that you completed supervised release without a problem. It's an award. It's an award for your good conduct. The court is certifying that you did good conduct for the time that you were watched. That's number one. Number two, an early termination of dismissal says you not only had good conduct, but you did everything as fast as humanly possible, if not more so. It says that you were so exemplary, they didn't have to watch you for that whole time. That speaks volumes to someone who's looking at your conduct and wants to know what kind of person you are. Because a judge is saying that. A judge is saying, hey, he doesn't need to be supervised anymore. A judge is saying, hey, not only does he need to be supervised, but you know what? We're going to dismiss this case because he did it perfectly. Okay, and
let me add something here. I think it's always really important to understand who you're talking to and who's going to make a decision and how much discretion they have, okay? Superior Court judges, in this case, they're going to have total discretion, okay? It's totally up to that judge whether or not your petition is going to be accepted. And the only reason you're going to get in front of the judge is because the DA has objected to your petition, okay? Because some of the times the judge is going to sign this. But you can just imagine, you've got something where the DA is saying, hey judge, I've got a problem with this petition, right? And you're in front of a judge. And a judge who is subject to election, or re-election, right, has to basically sign a piece of paper that says you're a good citizen. Actually, you're a law-abiding citizen, and you have been rehabilitated. Think about that. Think about from the judge's perspective, and then you can think about how do I demonstrate, how do I prove to a judge that it's safe to let me off the registry? Because, trust me, and one of the things that I'm really concerned about, and this is a friendly group, is that if we have another Megan Kanka, we have another Chelsea King, we have another J.C. Dugard, and I know that you all know who those very high-profile victims are. If we have something like that between now and 2021, that law is going to get repealed. Right. Okay? And that's why, Chance, you've been doing a really good job of telling people to stay in compliance, okay? And we really mean it, because it's like a rubber band. This rubber band has been stretched. Okay, 70 years, things were a certain way, and now they're not going to be that way anymore. This rubber band is stretched, and if one very high-profile incident happens, that rubber band's going to snap back the other way, and God protect us all.
Correct. Correct. And now I'm going to give you one other twist that you may not think of. This is counterintuitive. A lot of folks may say, well, you know what, I'm otherwise eligible for a certificate of rehabilitation, but why should I spend that money when I'm going to get this for free in 2021? Oh yeah. Okay, well let me explain to you why. Let me explain to you why. If you have a chance to do this before this thing ends in 2021, it's going to be pretty difficult for a judge to say, if you're being challenged, that you're not worthy of being taken off the registry if a court has already declared you rehabilitated. How can that be? And if you're applying for a certificate of rehabilitation, chances are you're going to have to go to that same court to petition if you're opposed. And how is it that the people are going to oppose you when the judge has already declared that you've been rehabilitated? Does everybody understand that? Tell me if anybody has a problem with thinking like that, because you have a problem with thinking like that.
No, I was just going to ask you, it's been about a year or so since I looked at it, but it seemed like my particular category would not qualify for a certificate of rehabilitation.
You should see a professional who can tell you for sure. Don't try to figure it out yourself, because there's several bodies of laws that are very confusing, and it could make you think. Just like when I look at the website, our own website, people are saying if you've gone to prison, you're not eligible. Yes, you are. If you fall into a category that makes you eligible. And let me tell you something, there's a few categories, and it's spelled out right in 4852, right when you look at it, and they say these particular sections are not eligible. Now, there are some people who are saying, well, look, I'm eligible, but I'm still not going to get relief because the law says under 290.5 that even if I get this certificate, I've got to still pardon. I've got to get a pardon for relief, so why even bother with the process? Same thing. If you've got a certificate of rehabilitation and you're not eligible, but you fall into one of the eligibility tiers, how is it going to be that you're going to be opposed? And if you are opposed and you're going to the same court where the same judge said you were rehabilitated even though you don't get relief, how simple a thought is that? It just makes perfect sense. But you don't have that much time to do it. And if you are eligible, you should do it now. And let me tell you something else about that process. The certificate process requires that you document what you say. A lot of folks think it's a simple application. I fill it out. They run a background. No. There is a process. Okay, but part of that process is you submit letters, and those letters talk about people who have observed you over time that will say, hey, this person took responsibility. This person is remorseful. What is remorseful? Not that I got caught. I'm not sorry I got caught. I'm sorry I did the thing that got me caught in the first place. That's remorse. This person develops some insight so that this person knows what the trigger mechanism is and has a post-conviction prevention plan so that they'll never engage in this behavior again. These are the things that the letters will help you with and will help a judge get to know you, and if they're from credible persons and credible sources, will carry through to the day you get off the registry if you fall into the category I just spoke about. So think about it. I'm just putting this out to you. It doesn't mean you have to. It's not in the law. This is a strategy. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say something that's helped me. I had 3 of my previous convictions dismissed, and always show up with a pastor if you can. It literally, the judge looked at me and said, well, if your pastor's willing to speak up for you, obviously you're rehabilitated. Looked right at me and said that. So if you can bring a pastor with you. It helped me a great deal.
All right.
A pastor.
Minister.
Sir.
I would like to say, as an attorney for 41 years, I've done a lot of explanations for people, young people, 30-year-old convictions. What Chase has just said is very true. I know many excellent criminal practitioners who, once the case is over, it's in the rearview mirror. They don't come back and counsel their clients. They don't do what Chase is talking about. And I've seen judges really moved by petition to expunge. And they like that part of their job. They like to see that people have come back and want to go somewhere. It's a big deal. And I'm thinking, and I'm not an expert, of course, but I think that the process of doing this is probably really a good thing for the individual. And I know it's been very rewarding for me as a lawyer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And so another way to put what Chance just said and Jim just said is this: CYA. But this time it's not your ass, it's the judge's ass, okay? You're trying to cover his or her ass because it's hanging out there. Anytime they grant a certificate of rehabilitation, and I'm just going to guess the same thing for these petitions, they're putting themselves and their career at risk. Think about it. Okay, these judges, most judges have been attorneys for a long time, and then they become a judge, and many of them have been a judge for a long time. Why do they want to risk their career? I'm granting you a petition. Okay, so that's why you want to bring somebody in and make you look like Shirley Temple or whatever the male counterpart is, that, you know, that you walk on water. I mean, really, and that's why that you're a law-abiding citizen, that you are rehabilitated. We're not just saying these words to say these words. I know in some of the jurisdictions, not all of them, it's really important to get the current psychological evaluation, because that's another thing that the judge can hide behind, right? If a PhD psychologist is willing to say this person poses a low risk or a very low risk, and that's, you take that piece of paper or that document to the judge. And by the way, if you do that and you pay for it yourself, if they say something different than that, you don't have to show it to the judge. Okay? But if you can persuade a psychologist, again, that you pose a low risk of reoffense, that's a very compelling document for a judge. Because the judge can say, well, the psychologist said this. They have somebody else to blame.
That's correct.
I just had a quick question. To go back to, in order to apply for these, do you have to go with the, where you were convicted in the county or in the county where you currently apply?
If you are expunging or are requesting a petition to dismiss your case, that's going to the original jurisdiction where you were convicted. If you're asking for a reduction from a felony to a misdemeanor, which I recommend, you go back to the jurisdiction where the conviction occurred. Same thing as a dismissal, because the judge has jurisdiction over that. If it is a certificate of rehabilitation, it is in the county where you reside. Yes, sir.
I just want to highlight what Jamie said about getting psychologists involved. You have to be very careful who the psychologist is. I was just an expert witness in a case in South Dakota, a federal case, and the psychologist report that the defense got, to me, was so bad and damning that I recommend they don't even use it. They didn't have to use it. But it wasn't because of what the psychologist says about something related to the actual alleged offense, but some other fetishism that are no longer considered mental health problems that this psychologist wrote there as kind of like something about bondage or something, which to just a naive audience sounded terrible and could never be used, even though the letter was actually expository in terms of the offense. This person had no interest in children and other things that were positive. There was this other element. So the psychologist, like you said, you don't have to show it, but it would be good to get a psychologist who's up to date on the psychiatric research and standards, and who is not him or herself a sex panic person.
Well, I mean that's a really good point. It's like attorneys too.
Right.
You want to make sure that if you hire an attorney, they need to be familiar with these issues. You want to make sure that if that attorney hires a psychologist, that this is what they do. You know, you don't want to go to an ear, nose, and throat guy and ask him to do heart surgery. And so I think that everybody, when they're under pressure, when you're facing criminal charges and you're overwhelmed and overstimulated by stress, you know, the first thing you do is you ask somebody, hey, do you know anybody good? You know, and often they pass you to this one and that one, and pretty soon the family, you know, the family lawyer who practices maybe corporate law or maybe family law or maybe something else, they all of a sudden take on the case because they feel that, you know, they want to support the family and do something for them. That's not doing something for them. You know, doing something for you is finding the right person for the right job, just like the right tool.
And I have some psychologists that I send my clients to because I know that they understand risk and, oh, maybe they're just a little friendlier to our community than some others. But that write really good, thorough reports, and if there was some little fetish or something like that, they would not include it in the report because, quite frankly, it's not relevant.
And this might be a good forensic psychology in other ways, like you said, somebody recommends a forensic psychology, but again, like Jenny, this has to be a person who really has an understanding of this issue.
Absolutely.
So Chance, I want to take the opportunity right now to talk about letters from attorneys, okay? So since the tiered registry law has been passed and signed by the governor, some attorneys are sending out letters that are full of lies and misrepresentations. I'm just going to be really blunt about that. Please be very careful. One in particular, I picked up the phone and I called him. And I said, look, you are doing something wrong here. Now, we attorneys, we have ethical rules and everything like that, and quite frankly, I'm not an expert in those ethical rules, but I get really upset when I see letters being sent to members of our community that are making promises that cannot be fulfilled. Even before the tiered registry came in the tiered registry law was passed, there were attorneys that were sending out letters that said, hey, you want a governor's pardon? We'll prepare an application for a governor's pardon for only X number of dollars. What they didn't tell people was that no governor in the state of California has ever pardoned somebody on the sex offender registry, ever. It doesn't make any difference if it was a Republican governor or a Democratic governor. No governor has been willing to stick their necks out to issue a pardon. So it's that kind of awareness that you need to know, and I am getting some calls now from people getting letters from different attorneys, and when I saw this one, I just blew a gasket, and I picked up the phone and called him and said, how dare you, and you need to stop mailing these letters out. Now, I have no authority to stop them from sending out the letters other than to just give them a tongue lashing, right? But the fact is you have to be very careful, and there's lots of times there's words in there, qualifying words, like we lawyers are so good at caveats. Okay, like, I'll fill out an application for you to get a governor's pardon. Of course they can. And then they send it to Sacramento, and it gets on somebody's desk, and years later you hear no. Okay, so why waste your time and money? Okay, and the same thing, be really careful when attorneys say, I can get you, I can get you off the registry in, 90 days or something like that. Baloney, okay? Please be a very careful consumer, and if you have any questions, ask me, ask Chance, ask any of our board members, and we'll tell you that how can somebody make a promise like that, again, when the California Department of Justice hasn't even issued its regulations. So, I mean, one of them, there was a set fee for only X dollars. I'm going to get you off the registry. It's like, really? And I have experience, this one letter, I have experience doing this. How can anybody have experience doing it and hasn't gone
I saw that letter. That letter was, you give me $3,500 and I will prepare your petition for 2021. They don't even know what 2021 is going to bring. They don't know if this is going to happen in 2021, and they don't know what is going to be ingrained in stone then.
Yeah.
How in the world are they going to know?
Please, when you get letters like that, I suggest you put them on the floor and stomp on them, or you burn them, or you line your birdcage with them. But please, don't hire those attorneys. And I take being an attorney really seriously, and I know Chance does as well. And they really, really put a bad mark on our reputation. There are some attorneys out there who shouldn't be. I think there was a question. Yes, sir.
I was just going to go back to that. It was a good point Chance made about the 1203 expungement dismissal. I received that, and of course I'm in Orange County, so I went back and followed up the certificate of rehab, and they don't like getting them in Orange County. But they basically said, good try. No, they really did. The DA said, no, and the judge said, why? And he said, what if he does it again? And they said, yep, that's a good one. The point being is, you want to stay in the ballpark. You don't want to lie low. You want to get the dismissal, the expungement. If you try to get the certificate, you've got some years ahead before you're getting off. Show the court you're willing to open up who you are. And by the way, that certificate of expungement, when you go back online on the Sheriff's Department, print it out, because what it says on there, it has the code, the original date of conviction. It shows a new date on there, Chance, of dismissal, and it says not guilty, 1203.
No convicted charges.
Yes, so what happens is when somebody says, you're a sex offender, and you go, whoa, 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 not guilty, 1203. They don't know what 1203 is. You carry that thing around. You keep copies of that. And believe me, it says the Justice Department on it.
Yeah. So, Chance, somebody asked a question before about where you file these things, right? And for certificate of rehabilitation, you do file where you currently reside. I have a client who lived in Orange County, and this is what I told him: move. No, I'm serious. And he did. He now lives in Long Beach, okay? Because Orange County has only granted one certificate of rehabilitation, and he's standing beside me. Okay, so Chance Oberstein has got a certificate of rehabilitation, but nobody else who's tried it in Orange County has. And I'm a real pragmatist, right? And I'm like, Long Beach isn't that far from Orange County, you can go visit your neighbors in Orange County, but you don't have to live there. So he literally moved to Long Beach, and I'm saying that you have to live there at least 6 months before we apply for your certificate of rehabilitation. He's otherwise eligible. But, and my concern is going to be for Orange County too with these petitions. And again, we've got judges who may or may not be willing to put their careers on the line to say, yes, this person's rehabilitated. And we've got 2 questions.
Well, before we do that, before we take any more, let me just finish this. It's only going to take a second. And then we should just open up for questions for everything. And that is that the outcome of this petition is either going to result in relief or denial, of course. And if it's relief, of course, you come off the registry. If it's denial, if the petition is denied after a hearing, the court shall set a date between 1 and 5 years in the future, after which a new petition may be filed. And I have that there. And it says, thereby extending registration period as much as 50% for Tier 1 folks and 25% for Tier 2. And I think that, I've listed the sections there for you. You've got the handout so that you don't forget. So now you know what the process is.
Chelsea, okay, this would be a good time. Chelsea's going to distribute this fact sheet, and I hope people understand the word unofficial. This is an unofficial summary of California's tiered registry laws. It lists some of the offenses and currently what tiers they're on. Please remember, this is 3 years away from happening. The reason I didn't want this distributed earlier is because you spend all your time looking at the list here, and if you may or may not find your penal code section that you're convicted of. This is subject to change. This is why I really didn't want to speak to this, but take it home, and it's a factor, it's a guideline, all right? And so if you look at this, and I don't know how many times I've said it, but I'm going to say it again. If you were convicted of a felony offense involving child pornography, you are currently on Tier 3, okay? We're going to try to get that changed next year, and I hope you all will come to Sacramento and help us get it changed. No guarantees that it will. It took us 6.5 freaking years to get a tiered registry, okay? I don't know how many years it's going to take us to get CP offenses off of Tier 3. And I'm going to tell you something, because when I heard these words, I was so inflamed, and I hope that you will be too. I told one of our partners, one of the organizations that helped us get the tiered registry law passed, right? I said, we're going to go back in 2019 and try to get those CP offenses down to Tiers 1 and 2. And you know what he said? If you do that, we will crush you. That's what he said, those words, we will crush you. I have them on my computer, so I will remember those words. And I will tell you, my first response was, this man weighs 300 pounds and he's 6'5", and he's just going to sit on me and crush me. But then I was like, no, I think it's going to be more painful than that, right? So they would, and they're law enforcement, they will come, they're saying they're going to come after us. Okay, so we've got panels on CP issues, child pornography issues, we've got panels on effective advocacy. Please, folks, go to those panels. We need to turn you into warriors, okay? We really do. Bruce, if I can point you out right there, would you raise your hand? So Bruce, he came to Sacramento the first time about 4 years ago, and scared out of stuffing, right? About being in Sacramento on this issue. He was really afraid. He is the father of a registrant, and he goes to Sacramento to lobby for other reasons as well. And wouldn't you know, the very first evening after our first day, we're walking down the street in Sacramento, and some senator comes up and goes, "Hi, Bruce, nice to see you. What are you doing in town?" And I don't remember what you said, but it was brilliant. It had nothing to do with our issue, okay? So we understand that it takes some risk. It really takes, but there's a huge reward there. And one of the things we hope to do in this conference is to empower you. And when you first go to Sacramento, you may be afraid, like Bruce was afraid, right? You may be afraid, but when you do this, know that we will train you. Know that you will never go into a meeting alone. Okay? There will be somebody like me, somebody like Chance. There will be people, we put teams together. There will be a registrant on the team. There will be a family member on the team. There will be somebody who doesn't fit in either category, but is a psychological counselor, a legal counselor. We will be there with you. Okay? But it's really, really important. And we have been able to stop so many bills just because we showed up. And one other quick story about how easy this is in fact that one time we went to speak against a bill in a committee hearing. 15 people. Let me tell you, there are over 105,000 people on the registry, right? You all have friends and family. That day, 15 people showed up. Okay? The committee passed the bill. We spoke against it, but there was whispering going on in the back of the room. So many people here. We don't have people to come and speak against bills. Oh my gosh. So the committee that day passed the legislation, and it was a committee, it was the very first step and many more steps to go. The author of the bill withdrew his bill the very next day. The author did. And we had a couple people call his office to find out why. And he said, I had no idea anybody would be opposed to this. Okay? And by the way, when you speak at a committee hearing, all you do is you stand up and go, my name is, and you can make up a name. And you can make up a town. But I'll say, I'm Janice from Sacramento, and I oppose this bill. That's all you have to say. But it's the numbers of people. It's the phone calls that get made. It's the letters that go in, okay? If you can't travel because you're on parole or probation, it's okay. You can still write letters. We give you model letters. You can still make phone calls. We give you the phone numbers to call, okay? But it always makes a difference. And when it comes to the tiered registry here, the major battle is over, I think, but it's not. The war isn't over. And in 2019, this man, who is a very highly paid lobbyist, is going to be gunning for us. And whether it's the CP offenses or he's going to try to take the whole thing down, I don't know. So that's again why Chance and I keep emphasizing that's what it looks like today. We hope to hold on to this victory, the 70% victory, but damn it, I want the other 30%.
And 2 points I want to make before we start to take in questions. One is, if you've got a felony CP, it's a wobbler, which means that you're eligible, most likely, depending on your facts and circumstances, for reduction to a misdemeanor. And that puts you in a different class. That puts you in the Tier 1 class. So if you're thinking smart, think misdemeanor. Okay, second of all, let's take Bruce here. Bruce not only came to Sacramento to help lobby, but I remember Bruce because I was running through one of those hallways trying to get to the room so I can get to the desk so I can testify before the committee. And Bruce caught me before I got in there. He had already broken down everything, and I jotted down his thought process because he had already organized it and came to a certain conclusion. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have won on that issue. So everybody has a skill set. And thank God for yours, Bruce. Thank you.
7 minutes, and then it's lunchtime, and we're going to stick to the schedule. So back there.
So even if you get a certificate of rehabilitation, and you're granted one, you're still going to be on the registry when this goes through.
Maybe. There's two different kinds of certificates. Some certificates end in termination of registration, and some don't. And we don't have the time to go into that.
But if we don't, and now you're suddenly on Tier 3 for something that you already have a certificate of rehabilitation for, then what? Does it even count?
Well, I'm going to back up Chance and saying it does count, and it will be seen as a positive factor. It may or may not. Yeah.
Well, let's just say this. If we build the bridge, which is downward departure, it's going to count big time. If we don't, then life is life. And that's just going to be the way it is until eventually we whittle this thing down to how we can downward depart from Tier 3. But our job this year, I think, is to get in the forum, or at least for 2019, and build the bridge down. And that's what we've got to do. 2019 is the year that we need to concentrate. We're lobbying. We're trying to change, make some modifications that will really make this thing a lot fairer and a lot better.
Is there a month where the vote happens?
No, not yet. It's very lobbying in the political process is very imprecise. We know it will start in January, okay? We know because it's 2019, it's an odd number year, we'll have newly elected members of the committees, and some of the newly elected members of the legislature, and some of the committee membership will change in the chairs. So we will go in late January of next year, and we will go meet with all these newly elected before their brains get infected. Yes, sir?
Yeah, if I understood correctly, you said that 50% or more of the registrants are on the 288 parenthesis A, meaning statistically half of us. My understanding is that those are not eligible for any kind of certificate or expunge or anything like that, and there's nothing we can do, right?
Yes, that's correct. So this is huge. It's really huge. I mean, trust me, folks, this tiered registry is a big deal. It's not just Janice going to the state capitol for 6.5 years. It's a change of more than 70 years, how things have been more than 70 years. So it's huge that the legislature was willing to do this. By the way, Senator Scott Wiener, it was his first year in the state legislature. I don't think he could have done it without the backup of Mark Leno and Tom Amiano, quite frankly, but he was willing to stick his neck out, and we haven't had that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have a question. If you really are not guilty of charges and you were convicted, right? How do you go about the process of getting rehabilitation? I mean, what do you do? If you turn around and say, I didn't do it, these were trumped up charges, am I correct? So once you do that, you're done, right? So my question is, do you have to lie and accept responsibility even though you did not do this?
I think it's a very personal decision, and I think you should talk to Chancellor Christine. She's a criminal defense attorney. Wait, back there, sorry.
Are there going to be any chances to those that are granted exclusion from the public maintenance internet? I'm currently granted exclusion for 20 years. Are there any changes that will affect that inclusion?
Yes, there are some changes in the legislation, unfortunately. So some people who are currently not required to, who are not listed on the Megasaw profile are going to be added to the Megasaw website. Their profiles will be. That's one of the things we're going after to change because we think it's wrong. Yes, sir.
I'm a little confused on like the sex offender treatment programs and certificates of rehabilitation. Are these things I'm supposed to be actively pursuing, or am I waiting until the thing is filled up and then they send me a letter and say, okay, your time's up and you're done?
Please don't wait. Do it now.
So I'll never get off unless I do these things?
I don't get it.
No, I mean, folks, I'm not a gambler myself, but some people gamble. I'm trying. Would you please listen? Thanks. Okay, so some people are gamblers and they shoot dice and they play cards or whatever they do. It's okay with me. Okay, but that's not how I want to spend my money. And the same thing with your time. Okay, do you want to just take a risk? Okay, I'm going to wait till the year 2021. I'm just going to file a petition. I'm going to do nothing between now and then to make my record look better. That to me is taking a gamble.
I don't even know about this thing. This is all the first I've ever heard of it. I've been registered since I got out of prison in 1994. From the offense in 1987.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you. You have a personal issue. Please talk to Chancellor Christine. We're going to end the panel in about 2 minutes. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I see that you guys are working very hard towards this tiered registry. Does that mean we're not trying to eliminate registration?
Okay, so this is what I think. If we said right now that we want to do away with the complete registry, we would be dead ducks. Nobody would listen to us. We'd have no credibility.
But is that maybe a future goal?
It may be a future goal. Yes, sir.
How do you get a copy of your static?
Well, you may or may not have one. Okay, so that's part of the deal too. If you were recently in prison, I'd say like in the last 10 years before you were released, you would have gotten a score, and it's probably on your Megasaw website. If your profile's on the Megasaw website, it should be there. Can I make a commercial here? Remember, we keep saying be law-abiding, be law-abiding. One of the things you cannot do that is so stupid is look at your own profile on the Megasaw website. You can go to the California Megasaw website, you can look at like the home page of the website, and you cannot go look at anybody's profile. Or you could be convicted of at least a misdemeanor. Okay, so don't do that. However, somebody else can do it for you. If you call me on the phone, and this is the first conversation we have, for at your profile. And I'm going to tell you what's on it. Sometimes I even print them out and send them to you by fax or by email. And that's perfectly legal. Somebody in your family can do it for you. Please don't do it yourself, but ask for some help so you can look at your profile. Quite frankly, that's one of the other things I'd like to change in 2019. It makes it, and my excuse or reason is going to be, oh, all these people who are going to be eligible for removal, they need to know what's on their profile. Okay, yes ma'am.
Last question. If your decision obviously is not favorable, do you have the right to appeal?
Yes.
You do.
That's what the law says, we'll see.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? All right, folks, it's now 12 o'clock. Thank you for being